Welcome to today's episode. We're talking about a topic that's close to many learners' hearts: how to think in English. It's a game changer for fluency, isn't it, Sarah?
Absolutely, Hamza. Thinking in English can help learners become more confident and spontaneous. It's almost like bypassing the translation step in your brain, making conversations flow naturally.
Right. But let's start with the basics. Why do so many learners struggle to think in English?
Good question. I think it's because most people are taught English in a very academic way, lots of grammar rules and vocabulary lists, but not enough practice using the language in real-life contexts.
That's so true. When I started learning a new language, I kept translating everything back to my native tongue. It was exhausting. So, what's the first step to start thinking in English?
Exactly. Translation takes time and often results in awkward phrasing. Thinking in English is like training your brain to use English as its default mode for certain situations.
That's a fantastic tip. Another way is to narrate your day in English. It's like having a mini conversation with yourself. For example, you can think, "I'm brushing my teeth now, then I'll have breakfast."
I'd say start small. Begin with labeling objects around you in English. For example, if you're in your kitchen, think, "This is a spoon, this is a plate." Build your internal English vocabulary this way. And don't worry about perfect grammar or fancy words when you do this. The goal is to get comfortable with the language.
What about visualizing scenarios? For instance, imagining you're at a coffee shop ordering in English. Does that help?
Definitely. Visualization is a powerful tool. You can mentally practice what you'd say and even imagine the responses you might get. It's like rehearsing for real-life conversations.
Speaking of conversations, talking to yourself out loud is also a great technique. It might feel a little awkward at first, but it's really effective.
True. And if you're worried about people overhearing you, try it when you're alone, like in your room or car. It's about building confidence.
Let's talk about incorporating English into daily routines. For example, what's your advice on using technology for this?
Oh, there are so many apps and tools. Set your phone and social media accounts to English. You'll be surprised how much passive learning happens when you're constantly exposed to the language.
And don't forget about music, podcasts, and TV shows. Listening to English regularly helps train your ear and makes the language feel more natural.
Yes, and try to mimic what you hear. If you're watching a show, pause and repeat lines. It's a fun way to practice pronunciation and intonation.
What about journaling? Writing your thoughts in English seems like a great way to solidify this habit.
Absolutely. Start with simple sentences about your day. Over time, you can add more detail and even explore your feelings or opinions in English.
Here's a question we get a lot: how do you deal with making mistakes while thinking or speaking in English?
Great question. First, accept that mistakes are a natural part of learning. The more you practice, the fewer mistakes you'll make. Don't let fear hold you back.
I always tell learners to focus on communication over perfection. If the other person understands you, that's what matters most.
Exactly. And over time, as you get more comfortable, you can refine your grammar and vocabulary. It's a journey.
Let's share some real-life examples of this.
Oh yes, I do. I was in a market, and instead of translating in my head, I decided to think of the words directly in English. I practiced phrases like, "How much is this?" and "Can you tell me where this is?" It really made a difference.
That's such a great example. And for our listeners, think of similar situations in your daily life where you can practice, like ordering food, asking for directions, or even talking about the weather. Let's dive deeper into daily routines.
Exactly. These small moments add up. You don't need to wait for big opportunities to practice English. Well, they could start by making a grocery list in English or even describing what they're cooking while in the kitchen. For example, I'm cutting the vegetables, or I need to boil the pasta. These small habits add up over time.
How else can learners incorporate thinking in English into their everyday lives? That's a great point. And if you're into fitness, you can even think about your workout routine in English. Imagine yourself saying, "I'm doing 20 push-ups," or "time for some yoga poses."
Perfect. And another idea is to read headlines or articles in English, even if it's just for a few minutes a day. This will help you think in English and stay informed.
Here's another tip: surround yourself with English-speaking friends or language exchange partners. The more you engage, the more natural it becomes. Let's expand this idea of engaging with others.
Absolutely. And don't be shy about asking questions. Most people appreciate the effort you're putting into learning their language.
What about online communities? Are they helpful?
Definitely. Joining forums, Facebook groups, or even Reddit threads focused on learning English is a great way to practice. You can participate in discussions, ask questions, and get feedback from native speakers.
That's so true. And online gaming can be another fun way to interact in English. Many multiplayer games require communication, so it's an excellent way to practice speaking and listening skills.
Agreed. And if gaming isn't your thing, apps like HelloTalk or Tandem let you connect with language exchange partners around the world. It's like having a pen pal, but in real time.
Let's talk about mindset for a moment. How important is having the right attitude when trying to think in English?
It's crucial. A positive mindset helps you stay motivated and overcome challenges. Treat mistakes as learning opportunities instead of failures.
That's so important. And remember to celebrate small wins. If you successfully think through a simple scenario in English, give yourself credit for that.
Absolutely. Progress in language learning is often incremental. Every step forward, no matter how small, is worth acknowledging.
Let's wrap up with an actionable challenge. For the next week, try to think in English for 10 minutes each day. Start with simple tasks like describing your surroundings, then gradually tackle more complex topics.
That's a fantastic challenge. And to make it even more effective, keep a journal of what you thought about. It's a great way to track your progress. See you next time, and keep practicing. The more you immerse yourself in English, the more natural it will feel.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Remember, thinking in English is a skill you can develop with consistent practice.